On the 9th of December 2020, a horrific tragedy shook the small town of Columbia, South Carolina. A day that will forever be etched in the minds of the family and friends of Risa Mae Saunders, Daniel Dale Long, Gage Ripley, and Jameson Long. The day a son, brother, and family member, Gavin Smith, turned into the monster that brutally took the lives of his loved ones at point-blank range, leaving a trail of blood and tears. The youngest victim, a mere 3 years old, had his innocent life cut short by the very person who was supposed to protect him. A family's love and trust were repaid with such unspeakable evil simply because they were against a relationship. This is the disturbing case of Gavin Smith. In a shocking and devastating incident, 16-year-old Gavin Smith allegedly shot and killed his entire family, including his mother, Risa Mae Saunders, who was 39, his stepfather, Daniel Dale Long, who was 37, and his 2 younger brothers, Gage Ripley and Jameson Long, who were aged 12 and aged 3, respectively. On that chilling December day in 2020, a frantic 911 call sent deputies from the Kanawha County Sheriff's Office rushing to a residence on Cemetery Hill Drive in Elkview, West Virginia. The caller, a relative of the family who lived in the house, had been trying to reach them for days but got no answer. The caller would later be identified as a relative who, with a sense of foreboding, had decided to visit the home to check on his loved ones. His worst fears were, however, confirmed when he discovered the gruesome scene inside the house. The bodies of 4 of his family members, including 2 young children, lay lifeless, victims of a brutal homicide. On arrival at the residence on Cemetery Hill Drive in Elkview, West Virginia, he noticed that the door was left open, which was quite strange, leading him to become suspicious. Going inside, he was greeted by a gruesome sight. 3 lifeless bodies lay before him, victims of an apparent homicide. His world was immediately turned upside down as he struggled to process what he was witnessing. Out of fear, he swiftly fled to a nearby house where he summoned the courage to call the police. First responders rushed to the scene, only to find a 4th body, adding to the growing sense of horror. When deputies arrived at the scene, they were met with an eerie silence. As investigators delved deeper, they learned that a 5th person, a juvenile, had been living in the house but had been miraculously relocated after the slaughter. The community was left reeling, grappling with the unimaginable tragedy that had unfolded in their midst. But the search for answers and justice had only just begun. Investigators' search for the killers ultimately led to the arrest of 16-year-old Gavin Smith, the son and brother of the victims, alongside his girlfriend, 17-year-old Rebecca Walker. The arrest sparked more questions than answers. What drove Smith and Walker to commit such a horrific act? Was it a premeditated attack or a moment of rage? The investigation continued, seeking justice for the victims and their loved ones. Subsequently, it would later be discovered that Rebecca had urged her boyfriend Gavin to kill his entire family so they could be together, a confession she made to the court. It was also learned that both families were against their relationship, and that could have been what motivated the heinous crime. In fact, on the day of the incident, Gavin and his girlfriend were on a video call, and she asked him to hurry up and commit the act. In December 2022, Gavin Smith was found guilty on all charges, which included 3 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of second-degree murder, and 1 count of using a firearm during the commission of a felony. Sherry Schaefer, niece of Risa Saunders, the woman who was murdered alongside her family, shared her heartbreaking story with Metro News. Her brother discovered their loved ones brutally murdered in their home. Sherry believes no punishment, no matter how severe, can truly match the horror of Smith's crimes. In her words, no life sentence will ever be enough. Sherry Schaefer, fighting back tears outside the courtroom, shared her mixed emotions about the sentence. While it was more lenient than she expected, it didn't diminish the pain of her loss. "It's not enough," she said, her voice cracking. She emphasized that Smith's actions severed their family ties, declaring, "He's no longer a part of our family. He's just Gavin." The judge's decision to grant life with mercy was solely due to state law requirements. and Smith will be eligible for parole in 15 years. Schaefer's words conveyed the depths of her grief and her acceptance of the long journey ahead. During the trial, the West Virginia courtroom witnessed a pivotal moment in the case of Gavin Smith, the 16-year-old accused of brutally murdering his entire family. Sheriff's detectives and experts from the West Virginia State Police Crime Lab took the stand and presented evidence that led Judge Ballard to rule that Smith would be tried as an adult for the heinous crimes. The courtroom was closed to cameras and media until the judge made the ruling, adding to the suspense and gravity of the situation. With Smith now facing adult charges, the case then proceeded to a grand jury for potential indictment, bringing the community one step closer to justice for the victims and their loved ones. Meanwhile, Gavin Smith addressed the court for the first time since his arrest. His voice was laced with remorse as he addressed the court, his words a heartfelt plea for leniency. "I do regret this, and if I could, I would take it back because it is one of my deepest regrets," he said, his eyes cast downward in a display of contrition. Smith's voice cracked as he continued, "I am begging you that if you do grant this alternative sentence, you won't have an issue." After a pause during which he conferred with his attorneys in hushed tones, Smith added, "There are days that I would do anything to take it back." His words hung in the air, an expression of sorrow and longing for a chance to undo the irreparable harm he had caused. Adoptive parents to the deceased husband, Daniel Long, with their voices trembling with grief, implored the court to impose the severest penalty possible on Gavin Smith. They described how the loss of their only son and grandchildren had shattered their lives, leaving an unbridgeable chasm. Long's father lamented, "I never expected my life to be in such turmoil at this stage in my life," his words conveying the devastating impact of the tragedy. Both parents expressed particular anguish over the brutal fate of Daniel's 3-year-old brother, who had loved Smith unconditionally. They highlighted the heinous nature of Smith's actions, which had snuffed out the young boy's innocent life. "I cannot comprehend how he could have taken his brother's life. Just because he was 16 at the time doesn't make a difference. He still took lives." Prosecutor J.C. McCallum urged Judge Ballard to impose the maximum sentence on each count, with consecutive terms, emphasizing that Smith had consistently shifted blame onto others, including his then-girlfriend Rebecca Walker. McCallum highlighted Walker's damning testimony, in which she revealed that she had pressured Smith to commit the heinous act via audio call, promising a life together. By seeking the harshest punishment, the prosecution aimed to hold Smith accountable for his actions and ensure justice for the victims and their loved ones. Judge Ballard's words were laced with disdain as he addressed Smith, his voice stern and unforgiving. "This was a heinous crime," Ballard declared, his tone echoing through the courtroom. "You murdered your entire family in cold blood, Mr. Smith. You devised this plan to kill your family days and weeks in advance for the selfish reason of spending time with your girlfriend." The judge's words painted a chilling picture of Smith's premeditated actions, which Ballard described as acts of pure evil. Ballard's condemnation was unsparing, as he detailed the brutality of Smith's crimes, including the execution-style killings of his mother, stepfather, and 2 brothers, one of whom was hiding under his crib. The judge's expression was one of disgust, as he asserted that Smith showed zero remorse for his actions, instead justifying them as rightful. Ballard's sentence was a scathing rebuke, denying Smith any leniency or alternate sentence, and ensuring that justice would be served for the victims and their loved ones. Judge Ballard handed down a severe sentence, imposing 3 life terms with mercy for the first-degree murder convictions, 40 years for second-degree murder, and 10 years for the firearms offense. However, Ballard made it clear that the granting of mercy was solely due to state law requirements rather than any leniency towards Smith. But despite Smith being tried as an adult at the age of 18, West Virginia law dictates that juveniles, those under 18 at the time of the crime, cannot be sentenced to life without mercy. This mandate meant that Smith would automatically become eligible for parole in 15 years, a provision that may bring little comfort to the victim's loved ones. The sentence reflects the gravity of Smith's crimes while also acknowledging the complexities of juvenile sentencing laws. The courtroom was filled with the palpable pain and anguish of the Long family, their sorrow echoing through the proceedings as they sought justice for their unimaginable loss. Meanwhile, since Rebecca Walker, the young woman who aided her boyfriend, Gavin Smith, in evading justice after he brutally murdered 4 family members, was also arrested, she had to return to court seeking a second chance. At only 18, Walker's fate hung in the balance as she asked the judge to reconsider her sentence. Walker had helped her then-boyfriend, Gavin Smith, go into hiding after he allegedly gunned down his mother, stepfather, and 2 young brothers in their Elkview home. A crime that sent shockwaves through the community, leaving friends and family reeling. As part of her plea for a second chance, Walker agreed to cooperate with authorities and testify against Smith in exchange for a reduced sentence. The agreement meant that 4 initial counts of first-degree murder were dropped, leaving many to wonder if justice had been fully served. However, her role in the aftermath of the murders left many questioning her culpability and the leniency of her original sentence. With her 18th birthday marking a new chapter in her life, Walker's sentencing reconsideration hearing raised questions about accountability, redemption, and the reliability of the justice system. The fate of Rebecca Walker, Gavin's girlfriend, was finally sealed in September 2021 when she received a 10-year prison sentence for her role in helping her boyfriend evade justice. The charges are 4 counts of accessory after the fact of first-degree murder. As Walker began her decade-long prison term, the community grappled with the aftermath of the brutal murders, with many unsatisfied with the verdict. The sentence raised questions about accountability, culpability, and the power of plea deals in shaping the outcome of criminal cases. In a heartening update 15 months after her sentence, Rebecca Walker's attorney, Robbie Long, reported that his client was making remarkable progress in the juvenile facility where she has been residing. During the hearing, Long shared that Walker was doing amazing in the program she was enrolled in, showcasing her capacity for growth and rehabilitation. This positive development sparked hope for Walker's future, as she continues to serve her 10-year sentence for her role in the tragic events that unfolded in Elkview. Her attorney, Robbie Long, also painted a vivid picture of his client's circumstances, describing her situation as a perfect storm that culminated in her involvement in the tragic events. Long emphasized that Walker had been vulnerable and grieving the loss of her mother, leading her to seek comfort in her boyfriend, whose influence ultimately drew her into the crimes. Acknowledging Walker's culpability, Long highlighted her remorse and accountability, noting that she had accepted responsibility, apologized, and was committed to making amends. With Walker's future hanging in the balance, Long implored Judge Kenneth Ballard to show leniency, requesting that she remain in the juvenile facility until she completes her high school education, rather than transferring her to the Adult Lake Correctional Center. Furthermore, Long asked that Walker be granted home confinement upon completion of her studies, offering a chance for her to rebuild her life under supervision. Overcome with emotion, Rebecca Walker struggled to address the court, her words choked back by tears. Her attorney, Robbie Long, stepped in, conveying her heartfelt apology and deep regret. Walker's message was directed to the grandfather of the young victims, expressing her sorrow and remorse for the unimaginable pain she had contributed to. First Assistant Senior Prosecuting Attorney Don Morris underscored the gravity of the crimes, reminding the court that Walker's boyfriend, Gavin Smith, was responsible for the heinous murders of 4 family members, including a mother, stepfather, and 2 young children. Morris emphasized that Smith's actions were premeditated and brutal, leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. The courtroom was somber, the weight of the tragedy palpable, as Walker's apology and Smith's atrocities hung in the balance. In another stunning revelation, First Assistant Senior Prosecuting Attorney Don Morris exposed a chilling detail in the case, revealing that 3-year-old Jameson Long had desperately tried to hide under a bed before being brutally murdered by Gavin Smith. This heartbreaking information had not been previously disclosed in court. Morris further illuminated the scope of Rebecca Walker's involvement, stating that she had not only discussed the crime with Smith beforehand, but also aided him in evading authorities for 3 days following the murders. Moreover, Walker had deliberately misled police about Smith's presence at the scene. Morris painted a disturbing picture of the couple's motivations, suggesting that they had chosen the timing of the crime to coincide with Walker's grandmother being out of town, allowing them to spend time together and engage in intimate activities in the very bedroom where the murders took place. The prosecutor's words left no doubt about the premeditated nature of the crimes and the depth of Walker's culpability. Prosecutor Don Morris emphasized the gravity of the crime, underscoring that 4 precious lives were lost, regardless of any legal agreements. He urged Judge Kenneth Ballard to uphold the original plea deal, which stipulated a sentence of 2.5 years for each of the 4 victims, totaling 10 years. Eventually, Judge Ballard denied the request for reconsideration and reaffirmed the original sentence of 10 years in prison. This decision meant that Walker was to be transferred to an adult correctional facility to serve out the remainder of her sentence, marking a significant turning point in her journey through the criminal justice system. Rebecca Walker, her voice laced with anxiety, testified that she was currently serving her sentence at Lakin Correctional Center and is slated for parole consideration in June 2023. Appearing nervous and hesitant, Walker struggled to answer questions, acknowledging the difficulty of testifying in the case. The jury learned that Walker's relationship with Gavin Smith was forbidden by both their families, who disapproved of their union. Undeterred, the young couple continued to secretly communicate through clandestine text messages and video chats, their clandestine interactions ultimately culminating in the tragic events that shook everyone. In a revealing testimony, Rebecca Walker recounted the events leading up to the tragic incident in December 2020. She shared that her grandmother, with whom she was living at the time, was planning a trip out of town, creating an opportunity for her and Gavin Smith to spend time together. Walker's testimony revealed a disturbing insight into Smith's state of mind, describing how he became enraged after being apprehended by the sheriff's office following multiple attempts to flee. When questioned by prosecutor Don Morris, Walker acknowledged that Smith expressed a chilling desire to kill his family in the aftermath of his anger. Alarmingly, Walker confessed that she had agreed to support this heinous plan, naively seeing it as a means for the couple to be reunited. The courtroom listened intently, grasping the gravity of the situation and the devastating consequences that would soon unfold. Rebecca Walker's testimony took another chilling turn as she described the events unfolding in real time on the day of the shootings. She was engaged in a video chat with Gavin Smith, who was at his family's home, and he brazenly displayed a gun and a knife on camera. Walker acknowledged that Smith had planned to murder his mother and stepfather, but her memory faltered when detailing the specific weapons used on each victim. Prosecutor Don Morris pressed Walker on her role in the tragedy, asking if she had encouraged Smith to carry out the heinous act. Walker's response was laced with remorse, as she confessed to urging Smith to hurry up and do it via messages sent during the video chat. Her words, spoken in a moment of dark impulse, had unwittingly fueled the carnage that would soon devastate the family and shake the community. Walker's testimony continued, revealing a chilling sequence of events. As she remained on the video call with Smith, the screen suddenly went black, plunging her into darkness and uncertainty. When the feed flickered back to life, Smith's demeanor shifted dramatically. He appeared panicked, nervous, and scared. Walker attempted to soothe his frazzled nerves, assuring him that everything would be okay, unaware of the horrors that had just unfolded. During cross-examination, Smith's attorney, John Sullivan, zeroed in on Walker's plea agreement with the state, seeking clarity on her role in the tragedy. Walker's responses were laced with remorse, as she acknowledged encouraging Smith to commit the heinous act, failing to notify authorities about the impending danger, and ultimately enabling the devastating outcome. Sullivan pressed her to confront the gravity of her actions, asking pointedly if she had indeed encouraged Smith to kill his parents. Walker's reply was a haunting yes, a stark admission of her complicity in the unimaginable tragedy that had befallen the family. When pressed by Smith's attorney, John Sullivan, to recall the specifics of her encouragement, Walker's voice was laced with remorse. She acknowledged that, despite not being physically present at the scene, she had urged Smith to expedite the heinous act via video chat. Walker's words, spoken in a moment of dark impulse, haunted her as she struggled to recall the exact phrasing. She remembered telling Smith to hurry up and do it, and get it over with, her language laced with a sense of urgency and impatience. The courtroom hung on her every word, the gravity of her actions sinking in with devastating clarity. Walker went on to reveal a chilling insight into her mindset at the time of the tragedy. She acknowledged that she had indeed wanted Smith to carry out the heinous act, naively believing that it would pave the way for their relationship to flourish. Her words were laced with a disturbing logic as she sought to justify the unimaginable. As the video call continued, Walker's testimony described a heart-wrenching moment when the sound of a baby's cries pierced the air. During the redirect examination, Walker clarified that while she had not wanted Smith to harm the baby, she had erroneously assumed the child was still alive due to the cries she heard on the call. The courtroom drama unfolded as attorney John Sullivan addressed the jury, framing the case as one that didn't hinge on who done it, but rather on the nuances of Smith's motivations. Sullivan acknowledged that Smith had indeed pulled the trigger, ending the lives of his family members. However, he argued that the prosecution lacked the crucial element of malice to secure a first-degree murder conviction. The state, however, presented a starkly different narrative, portraying Smith as a frustrated teenager driven by a singular desire to be with his girlfriend, Rebecca Walker. According to prosecutors, this misguided passion led him down a tragic path, culminating in the devastating loss of life. As the trial continued, the jury grappled with these competing narratives, seeking to unravel the truth behind the senseless tragedy that shook the community. Attorney John Sullivan presented a nuanced defense strategy. He argued that the prosecution's pursuit of a first-degree murder conviction was misguided, as the case lacked the essential element of malice. Sullivan implored the jury to scrutinize the evidence through the lens of malice, a crucial component of the most severe murder charge. He painted a poignant picture of Smith's tumultuous home life, where he was subjected to abuse and shouldered the weight of caring for his 3-year-old brother, who had begun to regard Smith as a surrogate father figure. The defense also highlighted the stark realities of the household, where food was locked away in the refrigerator and pantry, hinting at a deeper dysfunction that may have contributed to Smith's actions. By humanizing his client and contextualizing the events leading up to the crime, Attorney John Sullivan revealed shocking details about the restrictive environment Gavin Smith endured at home. Sullivan described a prison-like atmosphere, where Smith's family members locked the back door from the inside, effectively trapping him within the household. This testimony aimed to illustrate the desperation and sense of entrapment that may have driven Smith to commit the tragic act. In stark contrast, prosecutor J.C. McCallum presented a blunt and uncompromising narrative, characterizing Smith as a frustrated teenager who brutally murdered his family solely to pursue a romantic relationship with Rebecca Walker, his girlfriend at the time. McCallum's words were laced with a sense of outrage and disbelief, emphasizing the senselessness and heartlessness of the crime. The juxtaposition of these two narratives set the stage for a riveting trial as the jury grappled with the complexities of Smith's motivations and the true nature of his crimes. The trial continued with testimony from Timothy Saunders, Gavin Smith's grandfather, and Risa's father. Saunders recounted the harrowing moment he discovered the lifeless bodies of his family members at their home on Cemetery Hill Drive. He had grown concerned after not hearing from them for several days and decided to check on their well-being, only to be met with a scene of unimaginable tragedy. Saunders also shed light on the peculiar dynamics within the household, revealing that food was sometimes locked away to prevent excessive consumption by the boys, a measure aimed at managing limited resources. Gavin is currently serving 3 life sentences, a 40-year sentence on a second-degree murder charge in the death of his 3-year-old brother, and an additional 10 years for using a firearm during a felony. The judge also ordered the sentences to be served consecutively. And that's how we call it a wrap on this emotional and thought-provoking case of Gavin Smith. Thank you for sticking with us till the end. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more thought-provoking content. Until next time, stay informed, stay empathetic, and stay true to yourself.